I'm choosing the person who actually loves me. My wife wrote that message on Christmas night, then took my money and ran off with her affair partner. She had no idea she activated a clause that stripped her of everything and left me permanently out of her reach. Christmas morning, dead silence. Not a cozy silence, but a thunderous void where my wife should have been. Her car, the one I paid for, was gone. All that was left. A single, gut punch of a note. I left with someone who really loves me. Used your miles and your card. Take care of Mom. No goodbye, no apology. Just pure, unadulterated audacity. What the hell would you do next? My breath fogged the kitchen window. No chaotic wrapping paper, no coffee brewing, no smell of cinnamon rolls. Just the ticking of the old hall clock, marking the end of everything. Her SUV, my SUV, was simply gone. I looked around. No coats, no suitcases missing. Just that folded note, neatly placed right where I used to put her morning coffee. I left with someone who really loves me. The words burned. Used your miles and your card. Take care of Mom. That was it. No signature, no regret, no explanation. The sheer audacity was surgical, almost clinical. I actually laughed out loud. A single, choked sound that felt like it belonged to someone else. Then, I poured myself a cup of yesterday's cold coffee. I walked past the blinking Christmas lights she insisted I install every year, and headed to the guest room. Her mother was sitting up in bed, wearing the robe I gave her last Christmas. She looked confused. Maybe guilty, maybe just utterly drained. Is she gone? She asked, her voice thin, fragile. Apparently, I said, the word tasting like ash. She took the miles. Left the mother-in-law. My mother-in-law blinked twice. Well, she mumbled, at least she didn't take the dog. We didn't have a dog. I just made her a plate of eggs, toast, and fruit in silence. She tried to thank me, but I waved it off. Eat while it's hot. Then I went down to my office. Opened the bottom left drawer, and took out a thin black folder. Labeled, Contingency. Activation required. I'd hoped I'd never have to open it. But that's the thing about hope, isn't it? It's just denial, dressed up for church. Inside were documents. Things I'd been quietly gathering for the last 9 months. Screenshots, bank transfers, LinkedIn posts, travel stubs, spreadsheets. You see, you don't live with someone for over a decade without starting to notice things. Like when their car's Bluetooth pairs with someone else's phone before yours. Or when she's suddenly terrified of flying after years of spontaneous trips, unless it's with someone named Ryan whose last name she always forgot. And honestly, she really should have double-checked the admin rights on the travel booking site she used with my points. Or maybe not logged in from their shared iPad. I watched her entire surprise getaway unfold like a real-time vacation slideshow. 5-star resort. The Bahamas. Private plunge pool room. That's the part where most men break, right? Flip a table. Call a lawyer. Me. I just made myself a second cup of coffee. She thought she was clever. She thought she was walking away from a pushover. A man who spent years working, providing, being loyal, being boring. But here's the thing, my friend. Boring men build silent arsenals. We don't scream. We don't throw punches. We file. We document. We notarize. Back upstairs, I heard her mother shuffle to the bathroom. Meanwhile, I opened my email. Scheduled a message to be sent in exactly 5 hours. It was going to a corporate compliance inbox for a company her real man helped run. Subject, regarding employee Ryan and possible violations of the travel reimbursement policy. Just a little Christmas gift. Beneath that folder was one more item. A USB drive. Labeled, Prenuptial Agreement Addendum. She had signed it 5 years ago during what she called her paranoid phase after a coworker lost half his crypto in a divorce. I remember her saying, "You would never do that to me, but let's just sign something just in case." She forgot about it. I didn't. I encrypted it, printed it, notarized it, and filed it with my lawyer. One of the clauses was quite specific. It outlined the nullification of any claim on marital property in the event of willful financial malfeasance or extramarital conduct leading to reputational harm. All I had to do was prove one of the two. She had handed me both on a silver platter. Now, I'm not a cruel man. Not really. I didn't change the locks immediately. I didn't cancel her phone line. I didn't even drain the accounts yet. But I did make a list. And I finish what I start. By noon, she'd already posted 4 pictures. All palm trees, white sand, filtered sunsets. The kind of curated happiness that screams, "Look how free I am." One showed her in a swimsuit I bought her, holding a neon cocktail that probably cost more than my weekly groceries. Ryan from marketing, had his arm around her waist like he owned the air she breathed. He was kissing her cheek in the next one, with the caption, "Christmas miracle. Finally with someone who gets me." Another post just said, "True love, new beginnings, no more lies." No more lies, honey. I thought to myself, you build a home on lies, and then run off with the goddamn roof. I didn't comment. Didn't even flinch. I right-clicked the posts, downloaded the images, and then opened a tab I hadn't opened in a long time. The one for Van Garson Investigations. Same agency I used when a former business partner tried to embezzle from a licensing deal. Fast, discreet, thorough. My kind of people. I attached the images to a message titled Urgent Surveillance Request. Note, subject, my wife accompanied by Ryan. Last name omitted. Location, Bay Ozul Resort, Turks and Caicos. Please confirm romantic conduct for documentation purposes. I'm already monitoring travel and financial anomalies. Will require time-stamped recordings if possible. I hit send. While I waited, I opened the shared legal folder on my desktop. 3 subfolders, prenuptial, trust, contingency. I clicked prenuptial and uploaded the document she never bothered to read. Appendix C. I remembered the day she skimmed it, sitting across from me at the kitchen island, in a hurry, late for some strategy brunch. She signed it with the distracted energy of someone clicking accept all cookies on a website. I even joked, you might want to read that. She just rolled her eyes and said, what? You think I'm going to run off and bankrupt you or something? Funny. Almost psychic. Appendix C had only one paragraph, buried between the standard legal jargon. It stated that any infidelity or deliberate financial deception would trigger an immediate dissolution clause, rendering the marriage financially broken from the moment the action was committed, not when it was discovered. Which meant every dollar she spent with him on that island, from my points, from our joint account, from her secret travel fund, would legally qualify as theft on her part. Later that day, she posted another picture, matching white robes, room service on the terrace. His watch, clearly visible, resting on the nightstand. The caption, when the universe aligns red heart hash. More like, when the newsfeed aligns, honey. Her followers were eating it up. Heart emojis, bravo, queen, comments. One friend wrote, so happy you finally chose you. Oh, she did all right. She chose her ego. She chose to broadcast the betrayal as if she were the underdog in a movie montage. And I let her. Because the more noise she made, the more she confirmed the clause's timeline. Every post was a breadcrumb trail of self-incrimination. I made myself lunch. Grilled cheese sandwich. Her favorite, ironically. I ate in silence while reading the updated report from my financial monitoring alerts. She had withdrawn $4,200 in the last 72 hours. Half went to the resort. The other half, spa treatments, designer, boutique charges, a diamond-encrusted phone case. Very practical. I marked each expense in red on the spreadsheet. There was something almost relaxing about it, like marking time. Late that afternoon, my private investigator replied. They were already on their way to the island. 2 agents. Cameras. Drones. He said they'd have high-resolution footage within 48 hours. They had also confirmed the resort's internal policy on guest privacy, which was easily bypassed when it came to corporate fraud. Turns out Ryan had booked the room using his company's executive account. He probably thought it wouldn't raise any flags during a holiday weekend. That's the difference between being unfaithful and being unfaithful intelligently. I added one more document to the shared folder before logging off for the day. A short affidavit from my financial advisor, dated a month ago, noting the pattern of unusual spending on our joint accounts. My request for that document had been framed as a routine review of marital assets, just in case she ever tried to pull the scorched earth tactic. Another irony, she lit the match herself. As the sky darkened outside, I heard her mother cough in the hallway. I helped her back to bed. Made her some tea. Don't worry, I told her. They'll be back soon. And they would be. Oh yes, they would be. But what they were coming back to wasn't the warm home she left. It was a centrally heated courtroom. Because this time, I wasn't the one being left behind. I was the one drawing the map. The next morning, I did something I had never done before. I called a number with the intention of ruining someone. No anger, no yelling. Just precision. I found the compliance hotline in the footer of Ryan's company website. Tiny print, almost designed to be ignored. Ethics and misconduct reporting. Anonymous or direct. A direct number. So I used it. The line rang 3 times before a female voice, dry and professional, answered. Corporate ethics and compliance. This is Dana. I kept my tone level, polite even. Hello, my name is Thomas Whitmore. I believe one of your employees, Ryan Trevors, may have violated company travel and conduct policy. I'd like to report something sensitive. There was a pause. I understand. And may I ask, what is your relationship to Mr. Trevors? None, I said. But my wife has one. Another pause, longer this time. I see. And what exactly are you alleging? I'm not alleging anything, I clarified. I'm sending you a folder. It contains geotagged images of your employee on a resort trip. The billing for said trip appears to have been processed through your corporate travel department. The room was booked under his executive account. He is accompanied by my wife, who has no business affiliation with your company. Not legally, anyway. Her voice was steadier now, but sharper. You said geotagged. Right down to the pool bar, I confirmed. It also includes several timestamps, including one that shows him using what appears to be a company-issued laptop, with your logo sticker still on the screen. She cleared her throat. Can you forward those files? Already did, I said. Check your inbox. Subject: Code of Conduct Clarification. Ryan Trevors. I heard her typing. Then a sharp intake of breath. I see them. I'll let you decide if that aligns with your company's values, I continued. But just so we're clear, I'm not pressing charges yet. I just thought you'd want to know what kind of brand ambassador you have flying first class on Christmas Day. Her tone shifted. A mixture of professionalism and something like dread. Thank you, Mr. Whitmore. We appreciate your diligence. We will escalate this internally. Take your time, I said. He's on vacation for now. I hung up and stared at the wall for a moment. The silence in the house had become something else. Not peaceful, not eerie. Just surgical. Like a vacuum before an explosion. I walked into the kitchen and made coffee. The third of the day. My hands weren't shaking. My pulse wasn't racing. I was past that. What I felt now wasn't adrenaline. It was the calm of a man who knew exactly where every piece on the board was, and what the next move would be. In my inbox, the confirmation email from their automated system arrived. Thank you for your submission. Your concern has been logged and assigned. Reference number ETH92831. I forwarded the same email to my lawyer with the subject, breadcrumb number 3. This wasn't revenge. Not yet. This was documentation. Foundation. All perfectly admissible. I wasn't playing dirty. I was playing with gloves and paperwork, which, is actually worse. Dirty fades. Paper stays. At lunch, her mother asked if I'd heard from her. No, I said. She's probably thinking I'm helpless here, the old woman muttered. She left you here with a man she thought she was humiliating, I replied. Turns out she left you with the only person in this house who cares about your blood pressure pills. She let out a short, bitter laugh. She always did think she was the smart one. I smiled. She was. Just not in the way she imagined. I refreshed my inbox twice that night. Nothing. No response from Dana. No call from a company lawyer. But I wasn't worried. Corporations don't move like that. They don't slam doors. They review. They consult. They draft. And then they detonate. That night, I went into the attic and pulled out an old box labeled personal assets, untouched. Inside was the signed CEO lease agreement for her boutique space. The one she proudly told everyone she'd funded herself. I highlighted my name, the clause on shared liability, and the subparagraph on proprietary brand conflict. Then I put it in a new folder marked soft pressure. If she thought this trip was her new beginning, she would soon realize it was her professional obituary. And the best part? I wouldn't even have to write it. The corporation would. They always do. That night, after I had cleared the dishes and her mother had taken her usual half dose of blood pressure pills with a splash of chamomile tea, she slowly made her way to the study where I was sitting. By then, I had lit the fireplace, not for warmth, but for the illusion of comfort. The old woman settled into the armchair across from me with the deliberate grace of someone who has lived through real winters and real betrayals. She watched the flames for a while before she spoke. You knew about them? Her voice wasn't curious. It was resigned, as if the question had been stuck in her throat for weeks and finally found its way out. I didn't flinch, just nodded once, slowly. For a while, she let out a small, bitter laugh. She's always had a taste for drama, ever since high school. She broke up a friend's engagement once, just to prove she could. That tracked. She fiddled with the edge of the wool blanket on her lap. But you didn't deserve this. I didn't reply, not because I disagreed, but because there was no satisfaction left in hearing it out loud. She sighed. I tried to talk to her about how she treated you. I said, that man feeds you. He shelters you. He takes care of me when you forget. But she just laughed. Said I was being sentimental. You're not wrong, I said quietly. Sentiment is expensive. Her eyes narrowed slightly, as if seeing me for the first time. You're different this week. Maybe I finally learned a lesson from her book. Another silence. Then she reached into the pocket of her cardigan and pulled out something surprising. A small, folded notebook. The kind you'd find in the bargain section of a drugstore. She handed it to me as if it were heavy. I wasn't snooping. I was just looking for a stamp. I found this in her desk. I think she thought I wouldn't understand what it meant. I opened it. Inside, a handwritten list. Dates, amounts, vague labels, private transfer, payout account, $2,500. T3 bonus diverted, $1,800. March flight. Use joint miles, reimburse later. She never did. Travel fund balance, $7,420. Neat. Itemized. Calculated. A small part of me, the one who had spent years nodding politely while she vented about her clients over a glass of wine, wanted to pretend it was for something else. A gift. A surprise trip. An escape plan that didn't involve betrayal. But I had stopped negotiating with delusion days ago. She told me she was saving money for our anniversary, her mother murmured. But she said the same thing last year. And the year before. I put the notebook aside. She's been moving it in $500 increments for months. She thought it would fly under the radar. I shook my head. But it didn't. I set up alerts. She was crafty, but not smart. The truth was, I had noticed the fund a long time ago. Months. 1,000 here, 2,000 there. Categorized as miscellaneous client reimbursements, vendor advances. I didn't react right away. I needed time. To understand the pattern. To build the case. You don't bring the hammer down until you're sure the nail is deep enough to hurt. But the irony, she kept the notebook. Like a little trophy, proud of her secret savings, her escape route. I guess she never imagined I'd be sitting by the fire with her mother, while she played tropical goddess at a luxury spa. What are you going to do? Her mother asked softly. I looked toward the dark hallway, then back at her. Finish it. You mean the divorce? I mean everything. She didn't ask any more questions. Just nodded, and folded her hands, as if in prayer. Maybe for her daughter. Maybe for herself. After she went to bed, I sat with that notebook in my lap for a long time. I ran my fingers over the ink. Each line was a betrayal measured in dollars and arrogance. She thought she was building her freedom. But she was just funding the evidence. I opened my laptop, created a new folder on the encrypted drive, fund activity, and dropped in a scan of every single page. I labeled it Exhibit D, and cross-referenced the dates with the expense log I had been keeping. Every line had its reflection. Every dollar had its breadcrumb. The fire crackled softly. Somewhere upstairs, her mother coughed in her sleep. And in that moment, I stopped being the man she thought would beg. I became the man she should have feared. 2 days later, around 10:42 in the morning, my phone vibrated on the kitchen counter. Just once. Unknown number, no voicemail. Just a subtle vibration, like someone tapping gently on the edge of something about to collapse. I let it ring a second time before picking up. Thomas Whitmore. The voice was firm, measured. Not robotic, not friendly. Just professional enough to make me straighten my back. Yes, this is Alex Crawford. I'm the founder and managing director of Vanguard Motion, the company where Ryan Trevors is, or rather, was employed. Was, I repeated. I said nothing. I let the weight of that word hang between us. I've just seen the pictures, Crawford continued. The ones you sent to compliance. I wanted to call you directly, out of respect. Respect. That was rich, coming from the man whose employee had spent Christmas sipping mojitos on my dime, sticking his tongue down my wife's throat while the company paid for the minibar charges. But I didn't interrupt. Not yet. We did a quiet investigation, Crawford said. Turns out Ryan had a habit of misusing our travel budget. This wasn't the first strategic vacation. It's just the first time someone presented it with geotags and a time-stamped expense report. I still said nothing. There was a pause on the line. One of those perfectly placed silences that lets the next sentence cut deeper. They're flying back now. Economy class. Privileges have been revoked. I turned and looked at the suitcase by the door. Hers. The one I had packed up after she left it half full, stuffed with clothes she couldn't be bothered to take. Funny what happens to people who romanticize running away. They always think they can come back, that the door will still be open, that the couch will still be theirs to cry on. Crawford continued, in a voice like dry paper. Ryan's termination letter was delivered this morning. He has been locked out of his company accounts, travel card, and client portals. We are conducting a formal audit of his reimbursements. If we find further discrepancies, he could face criminal charges. And my wife? I asked finally. Another pause. We haven't named her officially, but her name came up. She was listed as a co-organizer on the venue invoice for what they claimed was a business conference. You might want to check your accounts. Our finance department believes some of the event was billed to your shared card. I already had. It was already documented. It was already sent to my lawyer as Exhibit E card misuse. She'll be back in the city tonight, Crawford said. I imagine she'll come to you first. She'll probably think Ryan just got a slap on the wrist. That she can cry her way out of this. A cold laugh got stuck in my throat. She won't be crying to me. Figured as much, he said. Still, consider this a courtesy call. From one quiet man to another. He didn't elaborate. He didn't need to. I hung up and stared at the ceiling for a moment. The ceiling fan turned lazily, dust on one of the blades. Something so ordinary. But everything under that ceiling was different. Now, reality had shifted, and they didn't know it yet. They thought they were landing for damage control. A few tears, a few manipulative phone calls, maybe a sit-down confession with her mother in the middle for dramatic effect. But this wasn't a reconciliation arc. This was the midpoint. The part of the story where the protagonist, me, stops waiting for justice and starts tightening the screws himself. I walked into the living room and opened the small drawer under the television. Inside, a box labeled Return Protocol. I took out the envelope marked Final Notification, for her eyes only, and placed it in the center of the coffee table. It contained a printed version of the prenuptial addendum, the photocopied and highlighted fund notebook, a still frame from the resort's drone footage showing her and Ryan holding hands by the pool with the timestamp in the corner, a summary of her shared card charges from the last 2 months, and a single sticky note. You flew on my dime. Now land on nothing. I sealed it. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to rage. The company had already done the dirty work for me. The walls were closing in from the outside. I just had to make sure the door stayed locked. The day they were scheduled to land, I met with my lawyer at his office just after sunrise. He's the kind of man who doesn't ask too many questions, just checks boxes, and pours a scotch that smells like old money and moral ambiguity. I handed him a USB drive and a thick file folder. Everything we discussed, I said. He raised an eyebrow. You sure you want to go irrevocable? I nodded. She made the first move. I'm just finishing the sentence. Within an hour, we had the paperwork filed. All joint accounts frozen. Not closed, just locked up tight. Any attempt to transfer funds would trigger an automatic alert to both me and the bank's fraud department. I didn't want to empty the accounts in one go. That would have been too obvious. Too satisfying. Instead, I left just enough in each one for her to think nothing had changed, until her card was declined in the middle of a latte. Next, the trust. He helped me move the house out of both our names and into a living trust, one controlled exclusively by me. The pension, too. All of it locked down under a clause she had never seen and couldn't contest without a signed waiver, one she would never get again. I had my lawyer stamp it right in front of me, the ink crisp and dry like a death certificate. On the way home, I stopped at the hardware store and bought a new smart lock hub. I installed it myself. Her phone blacklisted. Her laptop logged out. Her tablet remotely disconnected. Every digital trace of her access wiped cleaner than her vacation selfies. By noon, I had the house to myself. Digitally, legally, physically. And then I cleaned. Not out of spite or ritual, but because I didn't want to leave a single excuse on the table. I vacuumed the hallway. Refolded the linens. Even dusted the baseboards. When she came back in, and I knew she would, I wanted everything to look exactly as she had left it. Except for one detail. In the center of the kitchen table, where she once arranged charcuterie boards and read bridal magazines, I placed one thick, firm, unyielding sealed envelope. On the front, in my handwriting, upon your return. It wasn't taped down, just folded with weight, a warning in its very posture. Inside were copies of everything she would need to understand her new reality. No long letter, no emotional flourishes. Just the prenuptial clause she never remembered signing, the trust transfer documentation, an account summary showing zero available in her travel fund, a time-stamped screenshot of her failed smart lock access attempt, and finally, a single line on company letterhead, forwarded from my contact at Crawford's firm, termination effective immediately. Internal investigation pending. Do not return to any Venger Motion properties. I slipped it just under the envelope's flap, just enough to be visible when she opened it. Then I stepped back, looked at the house, and felt something unfamiliar. Calm. Not relief. Not victory. Just a stillness, like the moment before a storm breaks. Because now, for the first time in this whole charade, I wasn't reacting. I was setting the pace. She would land. She would check her balance. She would try to use her phone to open the front door. It would fail. She would check again. She would call the bank. She would call Ryan. She would cry. She would scream. Maybe she would try the back door. I sat on the couch and waited. Her mother came in from the hallway with her usual slow walk, saw the envelope on the table, and sighed. She's going to lose her mind, she muttered. She's going to lose more than that, I said. The old woman just nodded once. Not approving. Not condemning. Just understanding. Then she went to her room, clutching her mug. Outside, clouds were building. The temperature dropped a few degrees. The calm before the fall. I stood up, adjusted my shirt cuffs, and walked into the study. I didn't need to be present for her performance. The house was ready. The papers were signed. The locks were changed. And the man she expected to beg had been replaced by someone far more dangerous. A man with nothing left to lose, and everything already reclaimed. Around 6:30 that evening, I heard the crunch of tires on the thin layer of ice in the driveway. That sound, the pause of a car pulling up a little too close to the garage, used to mean she was home. Now it just meant the wolves thought they could come back to the den after they'd set it on fire. I didn't move. I stayed in the study, sitting in the leather armchair she always said looked too severe for a living room. A hardback copy of The Prince rested in my lap. Fitting. I wasn't reading it. Not really. I was just letting the silence sharpen around me like a blade. Then came the first knock. Quick. Hesitant. She didn't use her key. That no longer existed. She rang the doorbell once, twice, a pause, then again, more aggressively. Outside, muffled voices bled through the front door. Hers. And Ryan's. She was trying to whisper yell, a tone I knew well. Desperate, but still convinced she could manipulate the outcome if she used the right inflection. Maybe his not. I heard him mumble. He's not here. His car is in the garage. That's his shadow in the window. Tom, open the door. Nothing. I turned a page I wasn't reading. From the upstairs window, her mother stood looking down, her hand on the curtain. She's yelling, she said calmly, almost as if she were commenting on the weather forecast. She has that face on, the one she makes when she thinks tears will fix it. I didn't look up. Let her try. The knocking escalated. A new rhythm, pounding and doorbell ringing in sync. A toddler's tantrum in stereo. Then her voice cracked. Thomas, please, I can explain. Just let me in, please. There was the performance. The slow arc from indignation to desperation. I had seen it before, just never directed at me. Ryan tried once, too. His voice was thinner than I expected. Hey, man. Look, I know things got a little complicated. We can talk. I got up, walked silently to the side hall, and watched them from the narrow window between the curtains. She was wearing leggings and an oversized hoodie, probably his. Mascara smudged, hair pulled back as if she hadn't planned to make an impression, just crawled back into familiarity. Ryan looked worse. Disheveled, pale. The kind of man who had never been told no long enough to recognize it when it finally materialized. I watched her check her phone again, probably trying the smart lock app. Locked, she whispered. I went back to the study. The envelope I had left on the table remained untouched. They hadn't made it that far. The door firmly locked. The cameras recording everything. One mounted over the porch light. Another aimed at the driveway. Every word, every pound, every useless plea archived. My phone vibrated. A text from my lawyer. They'll try to provoke a response. You owe them none. Let them perform. I turned on the fire in the study. A quiet hum of gas and a soft blue flame. The warmth filled the room as her voice climbed another octave. Mom, are you in there? Can you hear me? Tell him to let me in. Her mother didn't move, just sipped her tea from the second floor landing, leaned over slightly, and said dryly, you left me here like luggage. He didn't. That silenced her for a moment. Ryan tried again. Dude, this is ridiculous. She made a mistake. Okay, but you're being. I closed the study door. Behind it, the noise faded to a dull thumping. I sat back down, put the book aside, and opened my laptop. I checked the untouched savings account. I checked the trust folder. I confirmed the transfer status. Finalized. I reviewed the compliance report from Crawford's firm. Internal investigation officially launched. Everything was moving forward without me having to lift another finger. Outside, the yelling resumed. Inside, peace. She had always believed that drama wins. That if she cries hard enough, manipulates cleverly enough, blackmails deeply enough, she'll get her way. But the door stayed locked. The man inside wasn't the same one she'd left behind. He had read every lie, filed every receipt, signed every paper. Now all he did was wait. Distantly, watching her panic like a stranger pounding on the wrong house. Because in every way that mattered, it wasn't hers anymore. She must have pounded on that door for a full 30 minutes before the coolness in her voice gave way to something raw. Panic no longer performative. And when neither I nor her mother answered, when the light stayed warm but the lock stayed cold, I watched her through the window finally notice it. The envelope. Right there on the welcome mat. Sealed, thick, staring up at her like the start of a confession. Or a sentence. She bent to pick it up, her fingers trembling, more from confusion than cold. Ryan hovered behind her, still too proud to kneel, still convinced this was all a big misunderstanding that could be solved with a buddy-buddy handshake and a half-assed apology. He leaned over her shoulder. She pulled the envelope away. No, she hissed, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. This is for me. That, at least, she understood. She sat right there on the freezing porch, her legs crossed like a teenager waiting for a ride that wasn't coming. She tore at the flap, too hard. The papers spilled into her lap. First page. The prenuptial agreement addendum. Bolded, signed, initialed. Legal. You could see the moment it hit her. Her eyes scanned the paragraph, her mouth moving slightly as if she were trying to rewrite it in real time, looking for some loophole or typo. There was none. It said, in the event of proven infidelity or financial misconduct, all claims on joint marital assets will be nullified retroactively from the date of the violation. Her lips parted. She reread it once, twice, then flipped to the next document. A formal notice of financial separation. Detailing every account, every asset, every transfer now moved or shielded under the newly revised trust. Her name appeared in only one place, the section labeled former spouse. No further access. Her hands started to shake. The kind of shaking you can't fake. Not even for someone who has made a career out of selective frailty. Ryan leaned in again. "What is it?" he asked. She said nothing. So he grabbed one of the papers, read a line, and went pale. Then she got to the third page. The note. The only handwritten thing in the whole package. "You spent Christmas with your real man. Now you can spend the new year building a real life with none of what I earned." Just a sentence. Not a threat. Not an insult. A statement of fact. A mirror held up. She read it 3 times, slower each time. And then the shift happened. The rage. Her whole body tensed like a puppet whose strings had been cut too fast. She shot to her feet, papers flying from her lap, fists clenched. Walked to the door and kicked it hard. "You miserable, petty man. Open the door, Tom. You think this makes you noble? You think this is strength? This is cruelty. You left me no choice," she screamed. I didn't answer. She whirled around and glared up at her mother's window. "Seriously? You're taking his side? After everything I did for you?" The old woman sipped her tea like a queen watching a peasant revolt. Ryan tried to pull her away. "Let's just go," he said quietly. "This is getting weird." "No," she snapped. "He can't do this. This is not over." Ryan stepped back, jaw tight, his eyes darting as if he were seeing a preview of a future he didn't sign up for. "Actually," he muttered, "I think it is." That was the first crack. Not in her voice, but in her plan. She turned back to the envelope, scooped the documents off the porch, and stuffed them into her bag as if they were cursed. Then she noticed something else. The security camera above the porch. The small red light blinking, recording everything. She froze. For the first time in the entire pathetic performance, she looked scared. Scared not of me, but of what came next. The implications. The audit. The potential lawsuit from Ryan's former employer. The record of every misused dollar. Every GPS-tagged photo. Because that's the thing about consequences. They don't arrive like thunder. They arrive like certified mail. Time-stamped recordings. A sealed envelope on a freezing porch. And when they do, the only thing you have left to scream at is your own reflection in the glass door. But the man inside. He's not coming to the door. He's already moved on. The next morning, I made scrambled eggs with pepper and smoked paprika, just the way I like them. Her mother joined me at the table, silent at first, then finally murmured she didn't sleep. I heard her pacing in the driveway until dawn. I nodded. Good. Across town, in an overpriced apartment rented on her independence budget, she was probably trying to reach her lawyer for the 3rd time. I pictured her pacing barefoot, phone on speaker, slapping at the printouts of the trust documents, ranting about ambushes and malicious intent, as if none of this were her own reflection staring back at her. At 10 a.m., her call was returned. On New Year's Day, at 9:01 a.m., the phone rang just once before I picked it up. Same number. Same dry tone. Alex Crawford again. "Figured I owed you one final update," he said, to close the loop. I sat by the window, coffee in hand, watching snow fall gently on the garden beds. She once insisted we redesign them to look more manicured. Now they were covered in a blanket of silence. "Go ahead," I said. "She tried to flip it on you," he said. "No nonsense. Filed a report yesterday. Claimed you were emotionally abusive, that she was pressured into signing financial agreements she didn't understand. Said she was manipulated. I waited. We looked into it. Surveillance footage, paper trail, financials, and well, a short, humorless laugh. You're clean. Too clean. You documented everything. The timelines, the approvals, the accounts. She wasn't trapped. She just never read the fine print." He paused. "She has nowhere to run," he concluded. "Our lawyers have her on record, contradicting her own timeline. And Ryan has confirmed your version of events. He turned on her within 20 minutes of our legal team getting involved. Said she convinced him to use the company card. He blamed her for everything. I said nothing. I just listened to the sound of distant fireworks popping somewhere in the neighborhood. The kind that feels premature, like people celebrating a new year without realizing how little they've earned it. She might try one more visit, Crawford said. I'd suggest you prepare for it. We're not pressing charges yet, but we are freezing her ability to work with any of our subsidiaries or clients. Another beat of silence. The truth is, Mr. Whitmore, you played this cleaner than most of our own internal counsel. Respect. I ended the call with a single word. Understood. Then I stood, walked over to the sideboard, opened the smart lock app on my phone. Her profile still showed as limited access, a setting I left on for exactly this moment, to see if she would attempt another entry. She had. Twice, early that morning. Both denied. I clicked the icon. Deleted her access. Permanently. No more notifications. No more warnings. No more thresholds crossed. She was out. I turned the phone off completely, powered it down, and left it face down on the table. In the distance, another batch of fireworks went off. Bigger. Brighter. The kind that are supposed to signify hope, renewal, a beginning. I walked slowly through the house, the floorboards groaning like they were exhaling after weeks of holding their breath. I walked past the coat rack where she used to hang her scarf. The stairs she used to run down, yelling last-minute questions about her outfit. The hallway mirror where she once paused to apply one more layer of lipstick before late-night meetings. None of it felt haunted now. Just clear. I poured another cup of coffee, stepped out onto the porch in my slippers and a worn sweater, and breathed in the cold air. There were still faint footprints in the snow from where she had stood screaming just a few days ago. Softer now, melting into irrelevance. And in the silence of the new year, I felt it. That rare thing. Not forgiveness. Not revenge. Just stillness. No texts. No threats. No doorbell rings. No last-minute tears. Because there was no need to answer the door. So, tell me, what would you have done if you found that note on Christmas morning? How would you have played your hand? I really want to hear your thoughts down in the comments.